Oddities! Welcome back to another episode of Midnight Curiosities. I'm Curator Raquel.
And I'm Curator Warbeauty.
And we have a guest this week.
I'm going to go by Curator Fishhand. If you ever listened to the episode before with the fish story, because that was me.
This is Curator Fishhand.
Curator me.
Curator
Also,
Fishhand. Okay, hello.
Curator Slender Gal.
Okay.
But really, we're just going to go by Audrey.
Hello, Audrey.
But I want those two things to be true.
Well,
So, for those who are wondering what episode Curator Fishhand is referring to, you may recall the story I was telling you about the abandoned asylum and the model that had to stick her hand in a fish.
Didn't like it.
She did not like it. I have the whole thing on film.
I do remember you telling me that story.
Well, this is Curator Fishhand.
You said that on the show?
You know what?
Yes, I did. I told
Let's
that
stick
story.
with that.
Okay.
I'm Curator Fishhand for right now.
Okay, well, I'm so glad that you could join us today. We usually do where we're coming live from at the beginning of each episode.
Oh, as the guest, do I get to decide where we're coming live from?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We're in
Slender Mansion.
Yeah,
Best place to be.
We're in your house today.
Because I'm Slender Gal, and we're in my Slender Mansion.
Oh,
Okay.
that's okay.
I can make it anything I want.
That's true.
Okay.
No rules here.
The world is your burrito.
Yes. It's my Slender Mansion.
It's the Slender Mansion. All right. Why? Is my question.
Why?
It's just why.
Well, because today we are talking about
Tulpas.
a subject.
Yeah, okay. You can say it. It's okay. They're gonna find out eventually.
So today we are talking about tulpas, and
Tulpas.
Curator Fishhand is a tulpa-enthusiast and expert.
Okay.
Definitely enthusiast, loose expert.
Right, we use that term loosely in this house, but she is here to tell us all about tulpas. Now, for those who are at home joining us, what is a tulpa, you might ask? Actually, well, I think we should really get into welcome to the bonus episode.
Yeah,
of
you
our
guys went into
miniseries.
so many things so fast.
I know, we just blew our listeners' minds.
So,
welcome.
we completed our mini-series last week. You guys loved it. I'm really grateful that you all loved it so much. But this week, we are doing a little epilogue, almost. We told you guys about this last week, if you listened. And this is it. Yeah, this is our epilogue. It's our first ever guest, and we're talking about tulpas. Do you want to tell them why tulpas didn't make it into the main series?
So, tulpas are kind of obscure, and you either know what a tulpa is or you don't.
You're either cool or you're not.
Exactly. You're either cool or you aren't.
By the end of this episode, everyone will be cool.
Exactly.
Except for me. I've always been cool.
Okay.
She's not as enthused as I want, so she's not
Aren't you
cool.
over 30?
Wow. Wow. No, 29 it goes till you're 32 now, so I'm still 29.
Oh yeah, we lost a couple years to COVID.
Yeah.
I want the Warbeauty take on tulpas, because mine's a little out there, and I feel like her nice grounded explanation is going to be a good start, and then I can yell.
Okay. So
Okay.
here's how this is going to go, everybody. I'm going to tell you what tulpas actually are, and then Curator Fishhand here, my tulpa expert,
Her name is Audrey.
is going to come in and tell you what everyone has made tulpas into.
Okay.
Because it is actually not reality. So,
Says who?
says, okay,
What is reality?
apparently it's a tulpa.
If I want it to be.
All right, so for those tuning in and you're like, okay, you keep saying this T word, tulpa.
What is
Sounds
a
like-
tulpa?
Sounds like a vegetable.
Okay.
So, tulpa is actually, and so I knew this from previously, but I did a little more research into it, and it's really fascinating. Tulpa is actually a Tibetan word, but it didn't get ascribed the name tulpa until much later, in like the 20th century almost. So tulpa is actually a Buddhist religious phenomena, which is really fascinating because we don't talk a whole lot about their phenomena because they have their own whole system going on.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that tulpas came from Buddhism.
Right, they come from Buddhism, and the original word for tulpa is called emanation body. And basically what this was is a Buddhist religious phenomena that you could put your aura or your astral self, and basically you could grow your astral self and your aura body into basically a projection. And it's this whole Buddhist philosophy, sort of, external self of yourself kind of thing. It's actually really complicated when you get into the science of it, but it stems from India pretty heavily, Indian Buddhism pretty heavily. And
interesting.
Later on in the, and they have this in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it was backed up. The name was changed from emanation body to tulpa, which means roughly, it's the idea of the word means the same in Tibet. So that word stuck. And now this idea of putting your consciousness into an object or into the ether and it growing its own kind of life is now called tulpa. Well, here's where it gets real fascinating real quick.
Because I have, an idea of what I know tulpas to be, and that's not quite it.
Well, that's actually the religious phenomena of tulpa.
Okay.
Now, in the 21st century, so there were two, I should say, in the 20th and the late 20th, early 21st century, there were two really famous mystics that started to change the concept of what a tulpa is. And one of them, this Alexandra chick, so really the difference comes from
these two mystics.
Right? But there is Alexandra David Neal.
Okay.
And at this point in the 20th century, occultism is huge. So she goes to Tibet and she observes what Westerners are calling thought form, aka tulpa, which is the Tibetan word for that, pretty much. And she observes in Tibet the monks and the Tibetan people put their thought forms into the ether, into objects, or created their own thought forms that became so powerful that they were their own interactive personalities. Now,
okay, that's kind of more how I know them.
Okay, right. So what's really funny about this is that she later on in her life went to say, because nobody believed her. It was not well received.
They weren't cool. They weren't cool.
They weren't cool.
No.
And nobody believed her, so she went on to basically recant her experience in Tibet. And she said, I may have been subject to my own hallucinations. Okay. So we've set the stage.
The first rule of being a tulpa enthusiast is believe in yourself.
Okay.
Don't recant.
So
I'm about to blow your mind on why that is the first rule of tulpa enthusiast.
I know I am one.
Okay. So what's really funny to me is how we went from late 20th century occultists to 21st century idea of tulpa, and now it is just popular, right?
Okay. Yes, they are popular.
Can I drop one hint word?
Yeah.
Interwebs.
Well, yeah, of course. Everything gets popular and mainstream on the internet. That's just how the world works these days.
Deeper than that.
So, from about 2009 is when it started really picking up popularity. And I have bad news for every tulpa enthusiast who never bothered to look into the history of why you know what a tulpa is in the first place. In 2009, it became really popular in forums like Reddit and 4chan, or like early Reddit years.
Yes.
And then it gained massive popularity and became a widespread conspiracy phenomena, thanks to the bronies. So My Little Pony fans and enthusiasts took the concept of tulpa. Are you going to be okay?
I'm just trying to keep up. You're just throwing a lot of information at me really fast, and I'm just trying to keep up, man.
Oh, good, because My Little Pony fans, aka bronies, were lonely and wanted the magic of friendship, so they took this concept of tulpa to create their own external forms of consciousness that were imaginary friends.
Oh my god. Okay.
So imaginary friends is an improper term.
Well, no, that's
I'm
what
gonna disagree.
Well, no, that's what it originally came from.
Could have.
In the brony. That's what it did come from in the brony world. And they called themselves tulpa-mancers.
I love that name. I want to get that tattooed.
My god.
And most of them cited loneliness and social anxiety as incentive to pick up the practice of tulpamancy.
Oh my god.
So,
Okay.
now that we've arrived to modern tulpamancy, our resident tulpa enthusiast will tell you that it is no longer an emanation body and ancient Buddhist practice and phenomena, and is now instead, thanks to the bronies, a widespread conspiracy.
I don't know that it's a conspiracy.
Okay.
Okay, tell me
It's
all about
just-
it.
So you have... Where to begin with this? I don't think it's a conspiracy. This is just an idea that now is getting so much traction. And if you subscribe to the, stream of consciousness theory, we are streaming all of these thoughts into one place. So now before, you were sitting in your bedroom as a brony saying, oh, my tulpa exists. But now you put it on the internet and 500,000 people think your tulpa exists. So we're putting all this energy and strengthening the tulpas, and the internet is a big part of that. I don't think that's a conspiracy. Where does energy go? It has to go somewhere.
That's true.
So are you trying to say that by putting their tulpa on the internet, it is strengthened by everyone else's belief in it? To the point
So
where
War
it
Beauty can
becomes
correct me if I'm wrong.
more?
Energy feeds the tulpa.
It does. Energy does feed the tulpa. It is an aura, an energetic-based body, and projection of your own self.
So not only am I feeding my tulpa, all of my friends are feeding the tulpa, and everyone on my Reddit and 4chan is feeding the tulpa.
That's
so
true.
we're all strengthening the tulpa.
That's true. The science is sound.
I am an enthusiast.
She's an enthusiast.
So I heard about tulpas the first time in 2012? Yes, 2012. I was much younger. Significantly younger than I am now. But I can't do that math right now. I was 14. And I did do the math. So I read a creepypasta, but I didn't realize at the time that I was reading it that it was a creepypasta. I thought it was just a story that somebody posted. And so I thought it was true when I was reading it. And it was some really long story, and it is almost 10 years ago, and I have gone back several times to try to find the story, and I've never been able to find it again. But it was this whole story about how this person went to a research study center, kind of like a scientific environment kind of place, and they were conducting studies on thought forms, and they were essentially placed in a bed and were told to, create a thought form and just spend time with it every day. Even though at first they were like, okay, it's just my imagination and I'm getting paid for this, so why not? But it extended over months and months and months until the thought form took life and it became a tulpa and started following them home from the research center, and it kind of became integrated in their lives and they couldn't escape from it.
So that's what's interesting, and that's why I don't agree with, some people say imaginary friend. Once you create the tulpa, it's like a child. you raise it and you feed it your thoughts and your intentions, but it can get to a point where it's like, all right, now I'm going to do what I want because you made this tulpa and now you gave it so much energy that it's its own entity. And that can get out of control. Like, that can be really dangerous.
Right, and I think that's why it has the term for its own thing. That's why it is a tulpa and it is not an imaginary friend. Because you have given it form, you have given it life almost, and you have created something, and now it has your energy, and it has your intentions and all of that feeding it.
But and that's, like, I mean, think about it.
The whole thing now.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, but that's something that we're taught all the time. It's the same thing like when you make a vision board. Like, you envision your life. You're almost willing this existence into place that you don't currently have. Like, it's totally a part of our culture. So if someone takes all their time, and you're like, oh, I want a purple pony tulpa, you can make that purple pony. And nobody can tell you it's not there. Nobody can tell you that.
Okay.
What is existence in reality anyway? Tulpas.
I mean, yeah, this really just invites a whole lot of really hot take arguments and existential questions. I mean, really, what is God but a tulpa?
Santa Claus. Most famous tulpa of all time.
Yes, Saint Nick. Curator Raquel is very familiar with Saint Nick.
I will never live this down. So are you suggesting that every, like, modern mythological figure is a tulpa based on its legend alone?
If you never told children that, let's just say we got rid of Santa Claus tomorrow. Okay. We never told the next generation of children. They would have no idea what Santa Claus is. What is he but an idea?
Okay. I mean, yeah.
He's purely created by thought. That's a tulpa.
Apparently he was a saint.
Saint Nicholas was, yes.
That watches children all the time. That's normal.
Okay, do you want to talk about the most famous, I mean, you mentioned Santa Claus, but I was thinking you could talk about Slender Man.
So, we want to talk about Reddit and creepypastas. So, for anyone that doesn't know, Slender Man was created out of a creepy photo contest. So, going back to the weird human stream of consciousness that is one, what are we all afraid of? Nameless, faceless, afraid of the dark, all these, like, common fears. And he is, like, the culmination of all that. So if you ask some people, he's a poor, bullied guy that wants to save children from a bad existence. If you ask other people, he wants to take your children. And this also goes back and ties into, like, the Pied Piper, which, another tulpa.
You just think everything's a tulpa.
Do you not agree?
See, for me, I don't know. With Slender Man, I think could be a tulpa at this point.
So Slender Man is the most well-known tulpa because people in real life were actually doing things for him. It got so powerful and out of control. And again, I blame this on the internet. It is that feedback loop of everyone saying this is real. Like, there are so many YouTube videos of people saying that they saw Slender Man or they're trying to talk to Slender Man. Get to the Slender Mansion where we are. There's so many people that want to do that. So without the internet, if one guy created this photo and put it on his wall, Slender Man doesn't exist. And everyone just streamed their fears and worries and concerns into this. And it was mostly like teenagers who already have crazy energy, and we know they can create their own things already. So they're putting all of their craziness into this one thing, and they gave it all this strength to the point that so many people still think it's real.
See, here's what really cracks me up and kills me, though, is that tulpa, in modern thought form, modern context, is not the original concept of emanation body. In fact, that was actually a skill that only really high-level meditators could achieve, because it was literally projecting your literal self in astral form into a more conscious form. So there's, like, I guess, like, kind of two of you a little bit. It's like wildly complicated, and this was considered a high-level, high-skill technique. So now, completely disregard the history of where tulpas come from, enter
Yes.
21st century bronies.
Yes. Okay, here's where Audrey is sending me right now.
Oh, no.
All current cryptids.
Yes.
Yes?
That's I know where you're going.
They
Just
have
say
to
it.
be.
Just
Like,
go ahead
they
and
have
say
to be
it.
tulpas, right? Because everybody believes in them, and they come with such a stigma around them that they have to be tulpas, right?
So there's a huge crossover between cryptids and tulpas. And that is actually a really fun game to play with yourself when you're thinking about anything. Cryptid or tulpa.
Cryptid or tulpa.
To me, it's a cryptid. Like, if someone has a Bigfoot hanging in their yard and they're like, oh, I caught this Bigfoot. Like, okay, you're not a tulpa anymore. You're real. Like, I'm looking at War Beauty. She's not a tulpa. She's right here. I can touch her. So that's my line.
Don't do that.
But
Don't touch
but
her.
here's my question: is why is a tulpa not real? At what point does a tulpa become reality? Like,
That's what I was thinking too.
because the science, I mean, and this is theoretical brain physics, metaphysics science, but in theory, you could project your will and intention into the ether, right? And you could basically give it an energetic body to the point where it literally physically manifests into something physical. So, yeah, and I know
Yes.
you like to talk about the difference between poltergeist and tulpa. But really, at the end of the day, what is the difference in modern tulpa definition? Because it gets really blurry and muddy.
It does. That's why it's interesting. At what point, if it's real to me, sitting in my room, and I believe it, and no one else believes me, it's still real to me. Like, we're all about creating your own reality and,
Yes.
willing the life that you want. So if I want to will that I have a best friend who hangs out with me in my room that nobody else can see, and to me that's reality to me. And to your point
So-
of the meditation and it being an actual skill, I have a theory about that.
Okay.
So if one
Okay.
person is working on something, they have to be hyper-focused, know what they're doing, get it done, expert, right?
Right.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
So if I'm building this IKEA shelf, I have one person that needs to build it. I got to be focused and get it done.
Right.
But if there's like 500 of us, we can all just kind of throw our parts in, and that IKEA shelf's probably only going to have one piece off. It's going to be fine. So if we're all putting our energy into the tulpa, as opposed to one person creating it, it just speeds up the process.
So you keep saying the word real. And I think that can be a little confusing for our listeners because it's this really blurry line between what's real and what's not real. And like you said, if you're sitting in the room with somebody and you can touch them and you can see them, are they real? Like,
Are they a tulpa?
How do you know that they're not a tulpa? Because you could have created this person in your mind and given them physical form to the point where, yes, you can talk to them, you can touch them and see them, and other people can too, which is why, back to cryptids, I think that they get created, and then as word spreads, more and more people get intrigued by them, and more people believe in them and go out actively seeking them, and that's why you have, Bigfoot sightings all over the world when Bigfoot may or may not be real.
Right. And that's what is a tulpa.
Yeah,
what is a
that's
tulpa? What is reality?
Everything is a tulpa. We live in a simulation.
Everything could be a tulpa. Everything.
Yeah.
Any
really
modern day,
fascinating.
I think of urban legends. We're all kind of around the same age. Maybe not Miss Raquel, looking young over there. Doesn't need wrinkle cream yet. But, like, Bloody Mary was a huge thing when I was a kid,
Yeah.
Oh,
right?
same.
How scared was everybody of Bloody Mary?
So scared.
Oh my gosh. Never turn the light off, never say the name, right? Terrified. So that essentially is a tulpa. And once I stopped thinking about it, I was no longer scared of it. It didn't have its
You're not
own
giving it any
presence.
more power.
Correct.
Of course, Bloody Mary, for those listening, referring to the game children play where you go into the bathroom, look in the mirror, all the lights off, and you say Bloody Mary 3 times while looking into the mirror. And the legend is that this Bloody Mary, this woman, appears in the mirror and, like, haunts you. They've made horror movies about it, and she, like, will kill you and whatever.
It's interesting that my generation had the same exact myth, but it was Candyman.
Exactly. Tulpa.
It's literally the exact same thing of you just say the name in the bathroom mirror 3 times and then he'll come out and kill you because...
I don't know who Candyman is based off of, but Bloody Mary is based off of the Countess Elizabeth Bathory, who is commonly referred to as Bloody Mary and is considered one of the most evil...
My favorite serial killer
women
of all time, by the way.
She's one of the most evil people of all time is Countess Elizabeth Bathory. And
definitely
that's who Bloody Mary was. So then that begs the question for me, though, is in this case with Bloody Mary, this was a real serial killer. This was a real person. So now we invoke her essence in this game, Bloody Mary. Is that still a tulpa?
Or is it a ghost?
I don't think it's a ghost. A ghost is, something that was alive, that is now not alive, that's around.
Right.
And most people don't know the origin, probably, of Bloody Mary. Like,
true.
Most kids, to them, it's this totally separate thing in their mind. So if they're doing it in the bathroom mirror with 10 of their friends, they're all putting their energy into that. If the shower curtain moves or there's a shadow, someone's going to think they saw something. I feel like a tulpa is conjured. It's not something that becomes of its own fruition. It's not just going to show up at your house and knock on the door. Like, you've been working on that tulpa if he knocks on your door.
Sure.
It's just interesting because, again, this is not the actual original concept of tulpa, and modern concept of tulpa and how it is thought form is technically a 20th century Western invention. But that in and of itself would be a tulpa by that standard.
Tulpaception.
Tulpaception.
That's so crazy.
But Slenderman. Slenderman, I would argue, is the strongest tulpa of all because there was an actual attempted murder.
King Tulpa.
King Tulpa.
Tulpa King.
Tulpa King Slenderman. There was an actual attempted murder in his name by 2 little girls.
Yeah.
They wanted to get to, again, this coveted place, the Slender Mansion. And
it's super easy to get to, guys. Just take a left.
Just say you're there. It's a tulpa. Who can tell me I'm not in the Slender Mansion
Yeah,
right now?
The logic is sound.
Yeah.
You better be in the Slender Mansion. You told all of our listeners that you were.
I would never lie. I'm in the Slender Mansion.
We would also never lie to our listeners.
Right here.
Incorrectly portray information. We would never do that.
I am a local tulpa enthusiast. You can trust me. That's what that means. So Slenderman, again, is the strongest one just because he was such a common thing. Like, so many people know about him. There are stories, horror movies, all kinds of things based on him.
Right, he went mainstream.
Totally mainstream. So if this was cats, he'd be the grumpy cat of tulpas. He'd be the most mainstream of cats. Whereas, like, Jeff the Talking Mongoose is like Little Bub. Not as well known, just as interesting.
Okay.
Not as evil. Much more playful.
Okay.
Not as evil. So Slenderman, in some people's minds, is this savior of children. In other ones, he's taking them. But these girls decided they want to go to the Slender Mansion, so they stabbed their 12-year-old friend 19 times. And now they're both...
I remember hearing about this.
Yes. Now they are both incarcerated in different ways for a very long time. And that never would have occurred without Slenderman. So in their mind, nobody could tell them that this wasn't real. They were afraid for their lives, and they said, when the investigators asked why they stabbed their friend, they said it was necessary.
Yep.
How much more real does it get than that?
Sometimes it's necessary to stab your friends.
To get to the Slender Mansion.
Sometimes it is.
So I guess... Oh, go ahead.
No, so I just want to... Now that we've made our viewers paranoid about everything being a tulpa...
I guess we did do that.
Let's talk you off the existential ledge a little bit.
But why?
Or not. Or just push you right off of it.
Jump in.
everyone that has basically, and writers have this problem a lot too, and curator Raquel, I know you're going to be able to relate, is, characters.
Don't tell them I'm a writer.
I'm sorry. Curator Raquel cannot relate at all because she doesn't know. She's totally illiterate. Cannot read or write.
Accurate. Okay, continue.
That's a tulpa.
That's
You just made a illiterate curator Raquel.
I did.
That's accurate.
I have a new tulpa, and it's War Beauty as Walter Mercado. That's my new tulpa.
If you don't know who Walter Mercado is, please don't Google him.
Please do.
So I just don't know that I don't want to come at you, Audrey, but it seems like you are just kind of throwing the word tulpa around for any idea that you have. And I don't think it's a tulpa until it is given enough thought and enough energy that it becomes real.
So if you ask tulpa.net,
that's a real place.
Excellent. Excellent.
It has step-by-step instructions because you just can't wait to get started on how to make your tulpa. And you are correct. So I can't just say, oh, I have a tulpa now. It takes a lot of care and energy to make a tulpa. I have to visualize it. They say draw it, talk to it. It's almost like a plant you're trying to bring back from the dead. It takes a lot of time, energy, and effort. I can't just say I have a tulpa and all of a sudden I have one. But something that's so well formed as Slender Man, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Jeff, again, the talking mongoose, that is a fully formed thought that a lot of people have fed their energy into. Right. So no, you can't just create something in a minute and say you have a tulpa. It actually is a lot of work.
So it's interesting because a lot of people who fall into this tulpa camp, thank you, bronies, but a lot of people in that same vein are role players. They play MMORPGs, and these are people who've created OCs or original characters. And now I think a lot of people are going to have a crisis and a breakdown. What's the difference between my OC that I've put all my energy to and have basically built into their own person for the last decade, and a tulpa?
So War Beauty might be talking about herself a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, you put me on blast for writing, but you're just going to, covertly sidestep your own
I have been hearing about these same characters for 9+ years now, and believe me, they have all of War Beauty's thoughts and intentions and different parts of her intertwined.
If you change your name to legally reflect one of your OCs, does that make your OC real?
All right, listen, not to at myself, but I did that. I definitely did that.
So
I
are you now
my trauma therapist about this particular OC.
Did you become a tulpa by doing that?
Well, and that's my question for the modern tulpa enthusiast crowd is
that now a tulpa?
Is that now a tulpa by definition? Because from what I'm hearing, I have absolutely created tulpas. Because I feed them constantly. They are pieces of me. They are literal emanations of me and my essence that I have been feeding for...
by extension of that same logic, any writer that creates any character is
creating tulpas.
Any character that you know of is a tulpa. SpongeBob is a tulpa.
Yeah, SpongeBob, Harry Potter, anything from Lord of the Rings, and any major
character.
Franchise.
I would argue
or minor franchise.
Not a major franchise, but it has to be something like Harry Potter is interesting, right? Because that's such Star Wars. That is such a cult following. So many people have put their energy into it. Mm-hmm. I would argue, yeah, you can totally branch tulpas off of that. But I
disagree.
Recently enjoyed Llamageddon. I don't think as many people have seen that. So, I don't know that Llamageddon is creating any tulpas.
I've never even heard of that.
Audrey, I disagree with you to the opposite effect. I think that the major franchises don't become tulpas because people enjoy them as works of fiction. They're not creating a real figure because they are enjoying it as. But for a writer, they are literally creating an entire backstory and a relationship with each of the characters. And I think that writers are literally creating things, and I think that would be more likely to take form into a tulpa than a cult following.
Okay, but right. but in the works of fiction, I mean, why is Harry Potter not J.K. Rowling's Tulpa at that point?
I don't know.
And I myself,
I
thanks
hope
to
that he's haunting her.
my great friendship with War Beauty here, have actually been to a camp where people will tell me they're Jedi. Are they not living their life by that whole theory, that whole idealism, and therefore they create this other self that they do on weekends, or even, you know, they'll say they're Jedi 24/7. Like, how are you not creating another version of yourself at that point?
How is that a different version from yourself? How is that not them? They're doing it, they're living that life, so isn't that just is them at that point?
When you're dressing up and changing your whole ideology and pouring your consciousness into something that, like, follows you, I think at that point you could go either way. You could say, this is who I am, and change, or you still, like, work 5 days a week in a suit, and then on the weekends you're, like, throwing a Jedi sword around. And at that point, like, and it's almost like some people, like you said, make it a part of themselves, but for other people, it's like this alter ego that they totally create. And feed into.
People do have those.
Yeah, so if you're just living your, like, best truth, like the whole vision board thing, I don't know that that's necessarily a tulpa. It's kind of when it gets out of your own hands. That's when it becomes a tulpa.
Yeah, when it takes on a life of its own.
Exactly.
Now, you know, for our listeners, please not to confuse tulpa with dissociative or multiple personality disorders, because there are actually cases where people have made this a case, and it is in fact not the same thing. But I know everyone's panicking right now, wondering, are they a tulpa? Anything they think about, is it a tulpa? And, you know, I would refer you to tulpas.net.
Tulpas.net is more about creating your own tulpa. It's a how-to guide on how to make a tulpa.
Are there resources out there that will, like, explain tulpas to people? Perhaps a little bit less than we did, or more than we did?
Does it explain?
It does explain the science of them a lot better, because it's explaining how to make them. So if you're not dedicating a lot of time and energy into this, or just jumping into a stream that already exists, like Slender Man, that has all of this energy behind it, you're probably not creating a tulpa.
Either way, I think that they're a really cool and fun, interesting thought experiment. And it's fun to play
the question.
real or tulpa.
What, like, reality is different to all of us.
Right.
And some people escape through other things, and some people just want to make a tulpa.
So I guess the question that the whole audience is dying to know, Audrey, is, do you have tulpas of your own?
So I'm associated with the tulpa.
And okay, what does that mean?
This just happened. This just happened.
Oh, no.
So, War Beauty already knows a little bit about this. I have created life. I have offspring, and they get to hear all my thoughts. And I've been doing a lot of tulpa research. Okay? So, tulpas have been a big topic in my house. And my youngest went outside, and he came in and he said, I saw pointy black man. And I really liked how vaguely racist that was. And I was like, tell me more about this. What did you see?
Oh, no. Okay.
And he said, now, context, I live on a farm, and there's cows, all right? Cows around my house. It's great. So he said, I saw a pointy black thing with horns in the field, and it wasn't a cow, and now I think I have a tulpa. This was 3 days ago.
Congratulations.
Yes. So
Your
3 days
dreams
ago.
have come true.
So now he's been outside twice, and he thinks he has seen it twice. So now every time he goes outside, he thinks he has seen the tulpa. So I'm pretty sure there's a tulpa experiment going on in my house right now, and he is actively creating a tulpa.
That's so cool.
That sounds about right.
That's so cool.
I'm associated with a tulpa. So if we can make this a thing and really scare him, that'd be great. If all of a sudden Pointy Black Man is a real tulpa, like he has his own Reddit, I would love that.
Okay, Pointy Black Man.
Because all we need to do is
Can we give him a better name?
Into it. If we all stream enough energy into it, he made the tulpa. Or he could be making it himself because he's a little bit obsessed.
Okay.
So I have never attempted to create my own tulpa because I had a Sicilian grandmother that was like, don't do those things. So I'm like War Beauty over here, no Ouija boards, no oracles.
Staunch against Ouija boards.
So I am fascinated with the idea of the tulpa because I'm also fascinated with the whole human one stream of general consciousness idea. And I think that's a big part of it.
You're fascinated with doing what your grandma didn't want you to do?
Just looking into it, not actually doing it.
Okay.
It's like in a glass box, and she's a window shopper.
Exactly.
And she's just gonna look at it.
Such beautiful imagery.
But if everyone around me wants to create the tulpa, I will fully watch what happens.
As it murders them all.
I don't know what it's gonna do. It might just become a part of our house.
Maybe it'll kill all your cows.
They're not my cows.
That would be sad, though.
I don't think it'll kill our cows.
It seems
It's
like
not my
currently
tulpa.
just-
I don't know.
I'll
Living.
ask my son. I don't know what the tulpa's gonna do. If he has murderous intents hidden in there somewhere, it might.
That's true.
I don't know. But I think we've all been through things in our life, and no one can tell us it wasn't real or it didn't happen. So who's to say that someone didn't create their own tulpa? It's an interesting thought.
That's true. You know, I'm actually a really big proponent for validating people's experiences, because just because I didn't have that experience doesn't mean you didn't. You know, everyone perceives reality 100% uniquely for the most part.
Absolutely.
So what is your takeaway, Curator Raquel? What do you think about tulpas now? I just want to know, because my favorite thing is when you say, because I do listen to all these, obviously.
Okay.
You know, my favorite thing is when you're like, oh man, I didn't know that. Now I feel like this. And then War Beauty over here like kind of tells you why you're wrong. So I would love to hear that happen.
She does. She does do that. I felt like I had a basic understanding of tulpas before the episode. I think now I'm a little bit more confused than I was at the beginning.
Correct.
I hope
Good.
our listeners are also a little bit more confused. Don't come here for clarity. I just think it's fascinating. I'm curious when you think about. I mean, my mind is stuck on cryptids because I love cryptids, but yeah, I'm just thinking about it.
So are you familiar with Jeff the Talking Mongoose?
No, I was
Okay,
just gonna
then-
let you keep saying it unquestioned.
So we need to have you look at this and then come back and have a debate about if he's a tulpa or a cryptid.
Okay.
It was either a real talking mongoose, which that's not fun, or it was a tulpa, or it was a cryptid, or it was an excellent prank on the level of Amityville, but in the Isle of Man.
Okay.
And he went
Well.
by Jeff.
I have been assigned
G-E-
homework on my own
GEF.
podcast. All right. Well, I think that just about does it for us this week.
Do we have time for story time?
Oh,
Sure. Do you have a story to tell?
What are you laughing at?
I'm just go tell your story.
What's War Beauty laughing at?
Tell your story.
So, as an avid listener, I know how excited War Beauty was about the exorcism episode.
I really was.
And I have my own possession tale to tell. And no one can tell me this is not real because I know what I saw. That's what every
Can I
every
interrupt
person
you
says.
really, really quick before you tell your
Yes.
story? I watched a live exorcism on TikTok today.
Oh yeah, you were texting about that.
I was, yes. Because
How did that go?
I needed everyone to know about it.
Was it successful?
Well, no, because it was conducted by a person who was not a priest and not formally trained in exorcisms. It was also done in public, which is unfortunate because that poor girl was not possessed. In the time that I spent watching it, there was a lot of telling me why I should be a Christian and a lot of check out my YouTube channel.
So I would argue that whoever did this, her possession became a tulpa. It became its own thing. And they
Hey
had a TikTok.
guys, we're just here with this possessed chick. Check out my YouTube channel for more.
Hit that like button.
Yeah.
You know, subscribe.
So
Okay,
is
go
her
ahead with your
possession
story.
a tulpa? Her possession could be a tulpa.
Maybe.
It could be. Or
I want to
if,
hear
you
your
know,
story.
My story. So, teenage me, I was 13. I know this because what happens, teenage girls, we have all this crazy energy and we get attacked by all these things and it's totally unfair. I don't know who decided that we were the most vulnerable population, but here we are. I was, at the time, living at my grandmother's house. Now, my grandmother, superstitious Sicilian grandmother, Black Widow, killed 2 husbands just by her pure energy, okay?
Icon.
She was an icon.
Sounds like an icon.
She had poltergeist. My grandfather that had died was living there. Her house was a hotbed, mostly because she was a big conductor, okay? She was wild. She was a wild lady. So I was asleep, and I vividly remember this awful, I want to say dream, but it was not a dream. I was walking around my grandmother's house, living my regular existence in said dream, and this thing was screaming in my head. When I tell you screaming in my head, I don't have the words to describe it. And it started really small, and it got bigger and bigger to the point that I was physically screaming back at it, and it was basically telling me to give in. And I woke up from this dream crying and screaming. I did not go back to sleep that night. It was the most vivid experience I have ever had. I've had a lot of dreams with ghosts and things like that, but not like that. Completely different than anything I have ever experienced. And I truly believe if I had given in at that moment, I probably would have been possessed by something. It was trying to take my whole soul and existence.
Well, if you had been possessed, then we would have sent you to a priest. Or to
In
that
front
guy
of
on
TikTok.
Right, would have sent you that guy on TikTok.
Is that in line with other attempted possession stories that you've heard at all? I'm curious.
Yeah, actually, absolutely. A lot of them, and this is one of the markers that priests look for before determining if this is a true possession case or not, is a dreamlike state that is real, but is still a dream state at the same time. And it's that point between consciousness and reality and unconsciousness, and that's language that they look for when they're determining if this was a really truly malicious case that needs divine intervention or not. You would have qualified.
Really glad I didn't give in.
Me too.
Did not want to be possessed by whatever that was.
Probably would have gotten possessed, and entities that do that are typically malicious, and people become very sick, and if they do not receive an exorcism, they typically die very fast.
Made the right choice.
Good for you.
Good for me. That was not a tulpa. I didn't create that or invite that, and that's the difference.
And that's the
Okay.
difference, folks.
That's the difference. All right. This has been Midnight Curiosities. Midnight Curiosities is hosted by One Eye Oddities, a new way to see magic. If you like what you heard today, tell a friend about it. Leave us a review on Apple. Audrey, you left us a review. That was pretty cool of you. Appreciated it.
I did leave a review, and I have another son that loves to leave reviews, and they're always really thorough and detailed, and I'm going to make him listen to you guys, so be ready for that.
Excellent.
Absolutely
It's going to be a
do.
great review.
Everybody do what Audrey does and force people to listen to our podcast and leave reviews. 10 out of 10, best listener behavior.
Midnight Curiosities is a tulpa, so...
Is it a tulpa? You know what? I have heard War Beauty talk about this idea for years. You created it, and now it is existence. Could have argued it was a tulpa for a little bit there.
True. Little did you know, I'm actually a master tulpa creator. I have mastered emanation body per ancient Buddhist form.
Did you?
But that's not the definition, is it? That's the boring definition. We want the today definition.
That's true. That's the ancient
Get with
actual
the time
definition.
for beauty. Okay, well, we have no new reviews this week, so next week we will be coming at you with something completely different. Do you want to tell people about that?
Yes, next week we're getting into the prologue of our next series, and it's going to be metaphysics in gaming. So if that's not your thing, I still admonish you to stay around and listen to it.
Don't admonish them, that means you're punishing them.
It does?
Yes.
Listen, no it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Listen.
Admonish means
punish.
like
Let's make this a
reprimand.
tulpa. It's a tulpa now.
All right, listen, just stick around and listen to it. I think
She
you guys will have a lot of fun.
encourages you to stay here.
Yes, and we'll be talking a lot about modern 21st century narrative of metaphysics,
Tulpas.
and that's really what the conversation's going to be through the lens of video games and how they have shaped metaphysics, how metaphysics have shaped video games, and we're going to get into what Audrey was saying in that whole stream of consciousness and talk about how that this particular thing and the internet has affect our spiritual, collective, metaphysical growth.
Yeah, it's gonna
I feel
be
validated right now.
lit.
I feel really good.
You should.
I feel validated.
It's gonna be so much fun.
Tulpas might actually come up because people do create original characters in these games.
They do.
They should.
So stick around. You'll find out more about that. And that's all I have to say about that.
All right. Well, I would like to thank Audrey for visiting us. You're the first guest on our show, so congratulations
Hooray.
for having
Thank
that.
you. Thanks for having me at
title
Slender Mansion, your local
will be-
tulpa-enthusiast. That would be my title on History Channel when I'm eventually on a documentary about this.
Yes, it will. When
Yes.
Midnight Curiosities gets made into a show.
Oh, I'll be there. And my tulpa will be fully formed.
Okay.
Maybe he can come too. Black
You'll have
Pointy
some
Man.
time.
He's coming.
Okay. I am Curator Raquel.
And I'm Curator War Beauty.
And as always, don't forget to
Become an oddity or a tulpa.
Or both.